Non-Monogamy Help is a podcast where your questions about open, non-monogamous or polyamorous relationships are answered. Our host, Lola Phoenix, will consult a licensed therapist with over a decade of experience to address your problems. Names and locations have been changed or censored to keep your questions anonymous. You're listening to Non-Monogamy Help, the podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 181 of the Non-Monogamy Help podcast. I'm Lola Phoenix. Please send your questions to ask@nonmonogamyhelp.com and they'll either be in the podcast or the column anonymously. If you want to read the columns, listen to the podcast, check out my books and my course, you can find everything at nonmonogamyhelp.com. Sign up to the early emails by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/email. And you can follow the column on Instagram at nonmonogamyhelp and on TikTok at nonmonohelp. And if you join the podcast shout-out tier, then I will, with your permission, read your name at the end of the podcast, and you'll be a super awesome person that I super appreciate. Let's get to this week's discussion question. If this is the first time you're hearing this, every week before I read the letter, I put forth a discussion question that you can use to get to know folks a little bit better. I also try to answer it myself as briefly as possible without just blathering on so that you can have a little bit of context. This week's discussion question is brought to you by Otter Bing Polyamory Conversation Cards, which are super cool and have lots of different types of things which you can ask that are polyamory specific, and you can get them at nonmonogamyhelp.com/cards, and you can get 10% off if you use non-mono-help at checkout. All right, let's get to the discussion question. What are some new experiences you'd like to have with your partners? Honestly, I've spent a long time being more hierarchical and wanting anchor partners, and I've moved into kind of a solo polyam space and relationship anarchist space, which has been really interesting. And that's kind of a new experience. But I'm focused more right now on really kind of being there for myself, because I've spent such a long time with romantic relationships being like the main focus of my life, and being like, feeling like if I didn't have one, then that was bad. And so I'm kind of into that era of me, of being, my own primary partner. And I think that that's really important. And I've always kind of hated dating, which doesn't really help. But I think my new experience that I'd like to have is having something that is casual. Is such a hard word, really, because I feel like casual gives off the inclination of like meaninglessness. And that's not what I mean. But I don't necessarily want something that has the escalation, right? If we need a new word, come on, polyam people, we're like really great at inventing new words. So let's invent a new word. It's not casual, but it's a non-escalating relationship. It's kind of like that, that ride where you're like, it's not the roller coaster. You're just sitting on it's like the lazy river. That's, I feel like that's the best I can do right now. The lazy river, I want a lazy river relationship, right? Where like, it's not going particularly fast. It's going in a circle. Is that the right? I don't know. I need the polyam people to give me a new word. The lazy river relationship maybe isn't the right word, but that's kind of the experience that I want to have, right? It's not escalating. It's not going up and down. It's not, I don't want to say dramatic, because, like the people who are always like, I don't want drama are always the most dramatic people, but something like that. That's the experience that I want to have. Very poorly explained, but that's going to be my answer. And I'm not going to bother trying to go into it, because I know that somebody's going to invent a word one day. I love it. It's hard sometimes because it does make me feel like I'm aging, which is not a bad thing. Like, I'm very happy to age. Like but it is that, I guess it's like, it's my FOMO. That's my FOMO. I don't have FOMO about like missing parties or anything. I have FOMO about words. It's like, how do I not know this word? I feel sad that I don't know this word, but I guess I know it now. So I guess I'm happy, but like word FOMO. Anyway, be quiet, Lola. The question is, what are some new or just regular experiences that you'd like to have with your partner or partners? Let's get to this week's question. I am female, currently in a monogamous relationship with my husband of 13 years. We have a 7-year-old son and own a home together. My husband travels a lot for work, so I have some level of independence. I identify as queer and have dated an equal number of men and women. I have been faithful and committed to my husband for the whole course of our relationship. Back in January, I was introduced to a close friend of my best friend. I found this new person, let's call them Jay, very attractive. We spoke very briefly, but I felt an instant connection. Jay is non-binary and very androgynous, presenting slightly more masculine than than feminine. I told my best friend about the attraction, and she told me that Jay said they were attracted to me too. I told my husband about the crush, and he did not seem to mind. I did not see Jay again until June when they came to stay at my house for one night with my best friend. The attraction was still there, and I felt even more drawn to them. My husband was with us, and I openly flirted with Jay. Thinking that my husband did not mind, he later told me that it made him uncomfortable to see me so attracted to someone else, especially someone who presents as masculine. I saw Jay for a few weeks later when we stayed at a house for 2 nights that we had rented with a group of mutual friends. Over the course of that weekend, I grew closer to Jay, spending a lot of our time together, often choosing to spend time with each other over the group. Nothing romantic happened between us, but we had a conversation at the end of the weekend where we acknowledged the attraction and agreed that we would not act on it. When I got home from that weekend, I opened up to my husband about the extent of my attraction and asked him if he would consider opening up our marriage so I could explore my feelings for Jay. He had a very hard time hearing this, and over the course of the next few weeks, we had many emotional conversations. Some good, some bad. We have also spoken with a therapist who has helped us with these conversations. We have seen her in the past and she overall feels like a good fit for us, but I worry that she is biased against polyamory. As it stands, my husband and I have agreed that we will be open on his side. He is allowed to see other people, and I will stay close for the foreseeable future. This arrangement was my idea, as I see this as a fair way for us to explore ethical non-monogamy, since I am the one who wants it and should be the first person to be confronted with the feelings of jealousy, etc. In terms of having a relationship with Jay, my husband says he is not saying no, but he needs time and wants our relationship to be in a better place before we can even discuss me having something with Jay. My husband does not want me to contact them or be friends with them, but he accepts that I will see them in group settings when I am with my best friend. This weekend, my husband and son were out of town and 3 friends came to stay at my house, including Jay. My husband was not happy about this, but he agreed to trust me. Again, nothing happened, but the attraction felt very strong. Jay and I did not have any discussions about our attraction and acted appropriately, but the romantic connection was there. They left yesterday and I feel really sad. I miss Jay and do not know when I will see them again. My husband wants me to take a break from seeing them after this weekend. I told my husband I will give it a year before I ask to explore a relationship with Jay again. To further complicate things, Jay has told me that they want to date me, but that they are not comfortable being the first person that I date when my husband and I do open up. They worry about wrecking my marriage, especially since we have a child. I'm extremely attracted to my husband, our sex life is amazing, and I know I want to be with him, but at the same time, I feel so pulled towards Jay. In an ideal world, I would be able to love both of them, and my husband and Jay would be friends. I could see myself and Jay both being comfortable in this scenario, but my husband is pretty traditional and feels like a real stretch for someone like him. But even separate from Jay, I do feel an open marriage would be great for us. Having these conversations has made me feel so much closer to my husband, and has made our sex even better. My husband is open to me dating femme women, but I usually do not find feminine women attractive. I guess my question is in part, do I go on the apps, out to bars, seeking a feminine woman to date so that I can, number 1, test the waters with my husband, and number 2, date someone else before Jay so that Jay feels comfortable? One last complication is that my husband is very much a one penis policy person, and Jay has confided in me that they were born male. They transitioned to female about 10 years ago, and I believe they're still taking female hormones, but they are currently gender nonconforming. They prefer people to think that they were born female, and no one in their current social circle knows about this besides me. I see them as female/non-binary, but I worry that if I were to date them in the future, and my husband found out that they were born male, he would say I broke our rule of not dating men. I do not know if Jay has had surgery, and I do not think that is anyone's business, including mine. If I do end up dating Jay, am I required to tell my husband that Jay was born male, even though this is not my quote-unquote secret to share? I am also curious about your thoughts of whether or not I should avoid seeing Jay altogether for my emotional health. I end up crying after I see them because I miss them, and being just friends with them feels almost impossible. I trust myself not to cheat, but when we are together, it almost feels like we're dating. Before we get to this week's answer, I want to quickly remind you of this episode's sponsor, BetterHelp. Quite often in a lot of my columns and podcasts, I encourage people to seek a polyamory-friendly therapist. For a lot of people, looking locally for a therapist who might be supportive of polyamory can be impossible or out of their budget. BetterHelp allows you to find therapists online that you can send messages to at any time of the day, and they do also offer some financial aid. You can get 10% off your first month by using the promo code Non-Monogamy at checkout or going to betterhelp.com/non-monogamy. Let's get to this week's answer. That is a lot of stuff going on, I will say first and foremost. Firstly, I want to say that the idea that he is allowed to have other partners and you aren't, in order so that you're the first person to experience jealousy, is kind of the cat's already out of the bag. That ain't no Etch-a-Sketch. It's just one doodle that can't be undid. Home skillet. Like, he's already jealous of Jay. So like that's not what's happening. So whatever I see why you tried to do that, but really that's already happened. So I would give up on that perception that you're going to experience. And also, if he's not actually interested in dating other people, it's functionally useless. It's like if you were, if your partner, if you really liked, skydiving and your partner was terrified of you skydiving because they thought it was super dangerous. I don't know how dangerous that actually is. Probably isn't. And then you were like, but you can go skydiving too. That's irrelevant because they don't want to go skydiving. It's not the equity thing, whatever the word is. It's not what you think it is in terms of actually trying to build trust. Because if he is already super busy and the reason why you have so much independence is because he has a time-intensive career, then if he has no interest in dating other people and he's super busy and he has a child, it's functionally useless. I think that Jay has already told you that they are not interested in being the first person that you date. And I understand why that is, because in a way, this does have the potential to, it wouldn't be Jay causing that. And I feel really sad that Jay thinks that it would be their fault. It wouldn't be their fault. If you're fundamentally incompatible with your husband in terms of your desire to explore non-monogamy, that is not Jay's fault. However, it could very well mean that your husband ends up blaming Jay for it. And that does happen. And I totally understand why Jay doesn't want to be that scapegoat. 100% get it. Especially given the position Jay is in as a trans person. I don't know if Jay specifically identifies as trans, but given their specific position, I can understand why they would be even more uninterested in being the scapegoat for this, like, breaking up this beautiful heterosexual family. Look at what those people have done, ruining lives with their perversity. Like, I get that narrative, and I get why Jay would be uninterested in being that, because this could very easily blow up into some sort of family scandal where all of your husband's family know about Jay and hate Jay for being the other person who's come in and ruined your precious family. So I would really consider giving up on the idea that you're going to be able to date Jay, because I think even if like it turns out that you had these discussions with your husband and you found out that you were inherently incompatible in terms and non-monogamy was something you wanted to pursue so badly that you couldn't end up staying with your husband, I think Jay would still feel a little bit of a way about it. So I would kind of give up on that idea a little bit. And whatever you need to secure your own emotional health, like, maybe do that. I do think eventually, like, you are kind of in a bit of a throes of like new relationship energy a little bit. Like, crushes are intense, and I do think that will eventually fade and you'll kind of get over it. But if it's causing you a lot of emotional distress and you feel like distance would help you doing that for you, then definitely consider that. But I'd really hesitate to continuously and mentally engage in the idea that, like, you're going to be able to date Jay, because I don't know if that ship is going to be seaworthy. The other thing I want to say is that there's a lot in this letter of you, for understandable reasons, betraying your own needs and wants for the sake of keeping peace within your relationship. And I get why you're doing that. You have a child, you have a house, you have this long-established relationship, which has no problems in it. You're not seeking out other relationships to fill a gap that's in your current relationship. However, I really want you to put yourself in the position of a femme woman who's going to a bar or is on dating apps to find a partner that genuinely is interested in them, only to come across you who's really just basically messing around with femme women for the purposes of pleasing your husband, or using someone as a guinea pig so that you can check this box off and say to your husband, okay, I've dated someone now, or tick the box off for Jay, and please your husband. Like, not that you're trying to please your husband. Like, it's not like he's like, oh, date femme women because I think it's hot. But like, you're not being honest with what you're truly attracted to. And in the process, that could hurt somebody. Like, a femme woman doesn't deserve, like, how would you feel being that woman who's just being basically used? And I think that this is the problem with what you're doing throughout this, is like you're constantly kind of betraying your own needs and your own wants to please the people around you. which isn't really like a good setup for any kind of relationship. And it's leading you to not like, you can't even date people who look masked. Like, I get it. Like OPP, I get why people feel that way. And men, usually men it's usually men who want the one penis policies. I get why men feel that way. I think I used to be very antagonistic about OPP in the way that a lot of people in the polyam community are, for understandable reasons, right? Because it devalues exactly for the reason that you're seeing here with Jay. It gender essentializes people to the point of being transphobic. It devalues the relationships between women as non-threatening in comparison to a heterosexual relationship. There's all sorts of reasons why a lot of people react very antagonistically towards one penis policies. I will say that when I've been in relationships with people and they have dated people whom I could compare myself directly to because we shared physical characteristics, that has drawn up a lot more anxiety in me than when they dated people who I couldn't compare myself directly to because we didn't share the same physical characteristics. So I can understand on an emotional level being scared of your partner dating somebody who shares some physical similarities to you because you're worried that they might be better, that like you can directly compare yourself to them in a way that feels more emotionally threatening than when they're so different that it's almost like apples and oranges. It's not necessarily that you find it less threatening or that you think those relationships don't matter. It's that because they're so different, now my feelings around this were very much like had a lot to do with gender. I was basically afraid that if my partner dated women, then my fakeness, my like non-womanness or my inability, I have had problems in the past seeing my non-binary identity rather instead of being just a non-binary identity as being a failed woman, right? Like that has been an issue for me throughout life. And that's been a problem. So I can easily get emotionally triggered by my partners dating women because I can feel like, oh shit, I'm going to be found out. Like I'm going to be rumbled and like they're going to find out that, oh wait, actually I don't need you, diet woman, because I can go date the real thing. Like, do you know what I mean? Like I've had those comparisons. I've felt that comparison and felt more emotionally triggered by that. Now, just because I'm emotionally triggered by that doesn't give me the right to control who my partners date. And that is really the problem here, is that you gotta, there has to be a better way of saying this. But I feel like you gotta piss or get off the pot. This sort of like dipping your toe into non-monogamy by like, oh, I'm gonna date femme women because my partner's okay with it. Are you okay with it? Are you okay with this? Are you okay with that? Allowing your partner's anxieties to control your behavior is not only unfair to you, but it's unfair to the people that you date. And I mean, think about it like think about it in terms of monogamous relationships. And what if your partner was like, oh, I'm not comfortable with you having male friends? I would hope that you would push back on that. I would hope that you would be like, okay, I get why you might emotionally be afraid, but I'm going to have the friends I'm going to have. And I'm not comfortable with your emotions and your feelings and your fears controlling what I do. That would not be acceptable. I would genuinely hope. In that same vein, I don't think it's acceptable for your partner, like your partner may have feelings about you dating somebody with a penis. That's something for him to work out. And you can be supportive of that and you can happily, talk. He could talk with you about that. But definitely don't out Jay to your husband. Please do not do that in no circumstances. But I think that you should push back in general about this OPP rule, not just because of Jay, which I said that maybe you should think about that ship as having sailed. And maybe you could mate up with that ship later on. But you should push back on that in general. Like, it's not like if you're going to have polyamory, if you're going to be able to date people, then you need to be able to date who you want to date, including mask-presenting women, if that's who you want to date. Don't go out and seek out relationships with people that you have no interest in, that you're not attracted to just because of your husband's discomfort. Like either this is something that you want and this is like he's going to have to deal with that and you're going to have a discussion about whether or not non-monogamy for you is a deal breaker. And not just because of Jay, but because in general, do you want to have the freedom? And does he also want to have the freedom to date who you want to date and to allow relationships to progress how they progress? Or do you is the sort of incompatibility here? Because your husband may not be polyamorous. Like the one penis policy, I'm not going to like go on and be like, oh, he's misogynistic, blah, blah, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. But he may not be genuinely want polyamory. That may not be something that he wants. And that's okay. It's not that he doesn't want you to be happy. It's not that he wants to control what you're doing with other people, but he may be conceding to allow you to date femme women, which sounds awful. Like, I hate that. But he may also be really bad. He may also be doing things that he doesn't want to do purely for the sake of your feelings. And he shouldn't do that either. He should not be like, okay, you can date people, but only femme women because he's uncomfortable with it. I don't know is that I would have, like, if you and Jay are kind of naturally flirty, I don't think it was necessarily the best introduction to kind of this setup for him to see you be super flirty with somebody else. But at the same time, like, that eventually at some point may happen. So I think you guys need to have a really big discussion about like non-monogamy. Does he want non-monogamy? This isn't about allowing you to date Jay. This is about, do you actually want non-monogamy in your relationship? How does that look with a child, with his like busy work schedule? Does he have time for other partners? Does he want other partners? How many other partners do you want? What does your schedule look like? What will that involve? The physicality of those situations is really important. This isn't about Jay, and don't make it about Jay because it's not fair to Jay, but make it about what you actually want. And you need to make that clear. You need to say to him, like, listen, if this is true about you, listen, I am interested in non-monogamy and I'm interested in all kinds of people. I am queer. I am not heterosexual. So I'm interested in all kinds of people. And the types of women that I tend to be interested in tend to be masc-presenting people. The types of non-binary people that I tend to be interested in tend to be masc-presenting people. I am not attracted to feminine women. I will not be dating feminine women. Like, maybe there might be a woman that comes across, but I certainly won't be seeking feminine women to date. So if we're going to do this, you need to be aware that these are the types of people that I'm going to date. And I'm not going to restrict people based off of what genitals they have. That's not something that I do. And it wouldn't be something that I do outside of this relationship. So it's not going to be something that I do inside of this relationship. And if he doesn't want polyamory, then you have, or doesn't want any form of non-monogamy, then ultimately you have a disagreement with each other. Like, you have an incompatibility. And then you have to then decide, is non-monogamy something that's so important to you that you are willing to, it's not worth the price. Losing that is not worth the price of admission for this relationship. There are some people who are, I think it's polyamorous. There's ambiamorous. I think I'm saying that correctly, who could be polyamorous or could be monogamous. They're not particularly wedded to either or. Is that you? Or is this something that is inherent about you? Now, there are other ways. If you're queer and you're interested in having experiences with masc women, there are other ways that you could potentially do that. Like either through, if it's legal where you are, hiring a sex worker, or like going on dates or going on dating sites and making it clear that you're looking for hookups with masc women. But that's something he's going to have to deal with. Like, even if this is like, you're not having full-on relationships with other people, you're not attracted to femme women. And he should know that about you. Like, you should not under any circumstances pretend to be like, go out and date people that you're not attracted to. That's not fair on you and it's not fair on them. And just to reiterate the last point, please, under no circumstances, tell anyone what Jay has told you about what their current status of their genitals. Please do not tell anyone about this unless Jay has given you explicit permission to do so. Because at the end of the day, this one penis policy is something you should be fighting in general, not for the sake of Jay. And please do not disclose that to your husband unless Jay has given you explicit permission to do so. Like, fight the one penis policy rule in general, but it is absolutely not your husband's business what genitals Jay has. And that's a good reason to not support OPP, because it basically means that you're going to have to report on the genitals of who your partners have to you. Like, no, it's none. And please also, if you're going to fight this if you're going to like push back on this with your husband, I probably shouldn't say fight this because you're not enemies. If you're going to push back on this with your husband, please don't create a scenario where then it's obvious that you're talking about Jay. So don't like accidentally out Jay either. Don't be like, what if I date someone who's super masc and also has a penis? Like, please don't do that. Please, like, if there's anything that you could say that would accidentally out Jay, please do not do that. So please if you're going to argue about this, if you're going to like push back against it, then it needs to be from the standpoint that, hey, I'm queer and I'm open to dating all sorts of people and I don't want to be restricted, and it's not fair to restrict. I understand that you might feel nervous about comparing yourself to other people, exactly the things that I've said already, but I'm not okay with being restricted in that way. Like, just make it about that, because that's for all sorts of reasons outside of Jay is a rule that you should push back on. And it's also kind of pointless because, like, you know, women can use toys, and you could compare, like, a man could compare themselves to a toy and feel, you know, inadequate in a lot of ways because there are things that toys can do that he can't do. So, like, yeah, whatever, you know. I understand it. I'm not quite as antagonistic towards it as some other people are, but I absolutely understand the antagonism people have towards it and the criticisms people have of it, and precisely for the reasons that you're seeing right now. So yeah, to sum it up, it's kind of too late. The cat's already out of the bag in terms of jealousy. So I don't think that rule that you've created, like that scenario you've created, makes any sense. I would really consider basically hanging up the idea that you might be able to date Jay. Maybe in 5 years, and if you and your husband have decided that you're both okay with polyamory and you've worked on some stuff, will you be able to pick up that thread again? But certainly not anytime soon. And if being around Jay is causing you emotional distress, like, I don't think that your husband should be dictating who you're allowed to be friends with and who you're allowed to see based on their comfort. So that's a no for me. But if you personally are feeling emotionally upset by seeing Jay and you feel like some distance would help you with that, then that's okay for you, for your reasons, for your emotions. Please don't go out and date femme women that you're actually not attracted to for the sake of ticking off a box for Jay. I don't think that Jay would be okay with that. And I actually think if you told Jay that you were willing to do that, they would probably be less attracted to you, maybe, or they certainly wouldn't be happy with that kind of situation. So please don't do that. You need to have a discussion with your partner about polyamory, about what this looks like, about whether or not your partner is actually interested in it for themselves, whether or not it's actually a deal breaker. And both of you need to stop agreeing to stuff that you don't want for the sake of, like, and I get that compromise is a thing. I'm not saying never compromise on anything. But these need to be compromises, like, in terms of, like, setting up time, like, dedicated time that you have with each other, dedicated, you know, time that you have as a family, time, you know, the time that you have with other people needs to be, can be clearly spelled out, and that can be a compromise. But other people shouldn't be the victims of the compromises that you make with each other to please one another. And because the more that you give anxiety an inch, the more it takes a mile. The more that you lean into the idea that, you know, the people with penises are something that your partner should fear, the more it validates the fear inside him that he should be afraid of that. So yeah, I would push back on OPP for the reasons that I explained. You know, in terms of polyamory, it's kind of like a piss or get off the pot thing, even though that's a horrible way of putting it. But you do need to, like, these sorts of compromises and ways that you're sacrificing things make other people into collateral, and it's not really fair. And last but not least, please, 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 please do not out Jay to anybody. It seems like you know that, but I'm just reaffirming that. Like, and I can easily see a situation where you create this imaginary scenario for your husband to push back on OPP that makes him connect the dots. And then he figures out, and then he asks you directly, does Jay have these genitals? And no, don't do that. Don't do that. Please don't. And I think personally, it's up to people's individual ethics, but I think it's absolutely, for the sake of avoiding outing someone, I would totally lie about something like that. Even to my partner, if it meant not outing someone, and not, like, especially if I felt like my partner was going to do something, or if I felt like my partner would out them to other people, I would absolutely lie to protect a trans person or a non-binary person. I don't know. Actually, I keep saying that. I'm sorry. I don't know if Jay actually identifies as trans, but I would certainly lie to not out someone for the purposes of protecting them. That's my personal opinion about that. So yeah, that was a lot to go through. Hopefully it all made sense. It's a complicated situation, and it can be emotionally upsetting, but you will, like, the crush feelings that you have, like, you're kind of swept up a little bit in new relationship energy, even if it's not full relationship, and that will eventually die down. It's fine. I think you'll get to a point where you can just be friends with Jay. But I think it's something that you really need to actually discuss and actually make agreements about, and actually work towards, it has to be something that he's actually interested in, not just something he's giving into because he doesn't know how to say no, because you both have like a house and a kid and a marriage and been together for a long time and have a good relationship and you don't want to lose that. You kind of have to figure out if you're fundamentally compatible in that way. So yeah, I hope it helps and good luck. Thank you for listening to episode 181 of the Non-Monogamy Help podcast. If you want to be awesome, you can sign up on the website to support me by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/subscribe. And if you sign up to the podcast shout out support tier, which is very much appreciated, then I will read your name at the end of the podcast with your permission. My current podcast shout out supporters are Ermi, Mike Kander, and Matios Caden. If for whatever reason you can't support economically, because I totally understand, the things you can do are subscribe to the free tier on the website at nonmonogamyhelp.com/subscribe. That means all the columns and the podcasts will be in your inbox on Friday whenever they're released. You can sign up to the early access email and get everything on Wednesday by going to nonmonogamyhelp.com/email. And you can take a screenshot of the podcast, share it to your stories, share it on social media, tag me. I'm more than happy to say thank you, and rate and review the podcast on iTunes and Spotify. That's all for this week. You'll get a new column next Friday and another podcast episode in a fortnight. Thank you again for listening. You've been listening to Non-Monogamy Help. The music was done by Chris Albury Jones at albury-jones.com. Thank you for listening.